Hola muchachos, ¿qué tal? Buenos días. Aquí tienen el horario para miércoles, el 17 de agosto. Due for today, at the end of today, I gave you a little bit more time than usual. Forgive me. Are the two assignments that I gave you last class. One is called Practica con el alfabeto, where you guys are playing two online games, practicing the sounds of the alphabet, Spanish alphabet. The other is a interview activity where you guys are introducing yourself to 12 classmates, asking them what their name is and recording their name, and then how their name is spelt using the sounds of the Spanish alphabet. If you guys want more direction on those assignments, check out the video summary from last class. No homework due for next class. And our daily objectives for today are to continue to become comfortable and recognize the vowel and consonant sounds in Spanish, and then to understand the grammatical relationship between nouns and adjectives in Spanish. And that relationship is gender and number agreement, how adjectives and nouns need to agree in those two ways. Masculine and feminine being gender, and singular and plural referring to number. So your warm-up for today, a continuation of the practice we did last class. Write how your favorite class is spelled using the sounds of the Spanish alphabet. Your favorite class will be in the target language in Spanish, and then you'll spell it using the sounds of the Spanish alphabet. So for example, mi materia favorita es inglés. Se escribe I, N, G, L, E, S. Mi materia favorita, should say favorita, es inglés. Se escribe, meaning it is written or it is spelt, and then there you have the sounds of each of the letters in the Spanish alphabet. All right, today's lesson, you're going to go into modules and click on Gramática Repaso and review the lessons on pages 3 and 5 in your textbook, and you guys have textbooks to your left and to your right. Also, you could use the e-textbook by following the steps, logging on to Pearson Realidades. That can be found under your Clever account. Either way, through Clever and getting to the e-text, or using the hard copy textbook you have, you guys are going to do pages 3 and 5, and then you have exercises 1 through 3 on pages 2 and 3, and then exercise 7 on page 5. And I'll walk you through how to do that right now. So before we take a look at today's activities, just to zoom out again where we're at, we spent the past couple weeks in the intro orientation module, just kind of getting situated, exchanging that prior knowledge, getting to know one another, talking about why and how it's important, how we can learn a foreign language, and then a little bit of the culture as it relates to American pop culture. By the way, instructions for how to log on to the e-textbook, you can find those here. And that's at the very end of the intro orientation module. So for the next week or two, we're going to be working in the para empezar. Para empezar means to begin, to get started. Empezar is to start. So these concepts are fundamental concepts that we need to have mastered in order to acquire new knowledge in the language. So concepts like the alphabet, the sounds of the language. We'll do a spelling test next week when I get back, so you can practice your recognition of those sounds. And today and tomorrow we're going to be reviewing adjectives and the verb ser, which is the verb to be, and then we're going to spend at least 2 classes, maybe a third if need be, on how to conjugate verbs in the present tense. We'll finish off with a little bit of conjugation bingo, and then WH words. These are called interrogatives. In English, who, what, when, where, why, and how. you'll learn those or review those interrogatives in Spanish. ¿Qué? ¿Cómo? ¿Dónde? ¿Cuándo? ¿Quién? ¿Por qué? Etc. Adverbs of frequency indicate how often we do things. Adverbs of frequency in English would be like never, sometimes, always, rarely, many times, and we'll learn those adverbs of frequency in Spanish. And then you'll have a little written presentation. I actually may make that an oral presentation, we'll see, that reviews all of these concepts. And then we'll go ahead and dive in to new stuff, or what may be new stuff for some. For others, it might be a little bit more review. But before we kind of actually get into the new material, I feel like it would be appropriate to go over some of the fundamentals and make sure you guys have a solid foundation. So, gramática repaso is where we are. Los adjetivos y el verbo ser. Let's take a look at that. And I know this video is running a little long. I'll try to give it to you in the Cliff Notes version here. So again, before we get started with Unit 1, going over a few concepts fundamental to the language, and that is that adjectives in Spanish must agree in both gender and number. And I think anytime we go over these, I think it would be worthwhile taking down in your notes. These, if I were with you in the classroom, I'd be jotting down that sentence on the whiteboard, and anything I put on the whiteboard means that you should put it in your notebooks. It's going to show up at some point on an exam, or it's just important enough to make sure you have mastered. So adjectives in Spanish must agree with nouns. An adjective like simpático needs to agree with the noun that it modifies, or that it describes, in two ways. It needs to agree with that noun in terms of gender, whether the noun is masculine or feminine. That's how we determine whether we use the O or A ending, right? So simpático would be masculine, simpática would be feminine. Number, referring to whether that noun is a singular or plural noun, right? One thing or more than one thing. So you're talking about one individual, a male individual, un chico simpático, una persona simpática. But if we're talking about multiple people, chicos simpáticos, profesoras simpáticas. So an adjective needs to what? Agree in two ways. In gender, ending in O or A, depending upon the gender of the noun that it modifies. And an adjective also needs to agree in number, whether that noun is singular or plural. Pretty basic. Many of you recall this from last year. And so all we're going to do, you guys can check out some of these videos that kind of articulate further the concept that I'm talking about. Or you guys can go ahead, if you feel like you're ready, and go ahead and dive into exercises 1 through 3 on pages 2 and 3. And you guys are going to do this in your notebooks. So let's go ahead and pull up the e-textbook. Again, you can utilize the textbooks that are in the classroom. So for exercise 1, excuse me, for exercise 1 it says, los chicos de las fotos de arriba hablan de cómo son. Usa las fotos y las conversaciones para contestar las preguntas. The kids from the photos above talk about what they're like, cómo son. Use the photos and their conversations to answer the question. So number 1, ¿cómo es Enrique? What adjective does Enrique use, or does Gloria use to describe Enrique? Would be artístico, right? Gloria says, oye, Enrique, ¿eres artístico? Sí, según mis amigos, soy muy artístico. And we could actually add a few other adjectives. Can you find them? Estudioso, studious, right? Or someone who's very academic. and reservado, which is a cognate, right? What's a cognate again? A word in another language that has three characteristics in common, a word that looks like, sounds like, and has the same meaning. Artístico is a cognate. Reservado is a cognate. Paciente is a cognate. Impaciente is a cognate. So you guys got this. Point out from the dialogue the answers. And we're looking for what? We're looking for adjectives, yeah? Adjectives, because we're trying to identify the descriptions that they use to describe one another. So number 2, según sus amigos, ¿cómo es Gloria? Y según su hermanito, according to Gloria's friends, what is she like? And according to her little brother, what is she like? You can find the answer in the dialogue box here. ¿Cómo son Alicia y Sonia? You can find that answer here. And ¿quién es sociable? Who is sociable? So this question is directed to Felipe. ¿Te gusta practicar deportes, Felipe? He says, no, I'm not sporty at all. No soy nada deportista. But he likes to spend time with his friends. Soy sociable y muy simpático. So ¿quién is asking who? Who is sociable? And the answer would be Felipe. And again, we'll go over what these this is what we call interrogatives, right? These WH words in English, or in Spanish rather. And we'll go over those next week. And they're often used with the verb ser as well, which is what we're going to talk about here next. Excuse me. So this is an adjective chart here, articulating the concept that we talked about, how adjectives, they describe people, place, and things, in other words, nouns, and they need to agree with nouns in terms of gender and number. And you can see that articulated here on this page. Masculine singular nouns ending in O, masculine plural nouns ending in S, ES or OS, and the same for feminine nouns. Feminine singular ending in A, and feminine plural ending in AS, for the most part. You can see that there's some irregularities there. Deportista, I think they talk about here at the bottom. Deportista, that ista suffix you can see is gender neutral in that it's used for both masculine and feminine nouns. For nouns that end in a consonant, for masculine nouns that end in a consonant, we need to add ES to make them plural. You can see that for both trabajador and joven. So this exercise, number 2, is asking you, and you did this for your autobiographical presentation. You answered that question. ¿Cómo eres? What do you like? Which adjectives would you use to describe yourself, either from up above here or on the right-hand side? And again, a lot of these are cognates. And of course, you could use your phones for academic purposes and look up any ones that you're not familiar with and use them to answer these questions. Según tus amigos, ¿cómo eres tú? According to your friends, what are you like? Pick 3 adjectives that you think your friends would use to describe you. Según mis amigos, yo soy paciente, honesto, y serio, for example. Según mis amigos, yo soy, and so on. ¿Eres paciente o impaciente? Are you patient or impatient? Yo soy paciente, or yo soy impaciente, or yo soy paciente y también. También meaning also. Impaciente. Perhaps you're a little bit of both sometimes. Eres trabajador trabajador, masculine, trabajadora, feminine. ¿Eres trabajador o perezoso? Or perezosa. So this is hardworking, and this is lazy. Yo soy trabajadora. Yo soy un poco perezosa. You pick. This is all about you, right? And then, ¿cómo es tu mejor amigo? Tu mejor amiga. What do you think tu mejor amigo means? You know amigo. Mejor is best. So how is your best friend? How would you describe them? Do the same thing you did for number 1 and use 3 adjectives to describe your best friend. Mi mejor amigo es deportista, trabajador, y sociable. Okay, and you got a lot of adjectives there to choose from. Finally, for exercise 3, you guys are going to work in groups and create a list of 8 famous people. Okay, 8 famous people. I'd encourage you guys to use the documentary that we came across, and you can pull that up again. Or just any random people of your choosing. We did Steph Curry toward the beginning of the academic year. You could tap into that, utilize your notes from your warm-up there. But create a list of 8 people. Again, you can do this with your partner or a small group of 3. And list those 8 characters, 8 people, and then I want you to give 2 adjectives that best describe that person. For example, Mark Anthony es meaning is, right? Mark Anthony es talentoso y muy guapo. And the muy is optional, right? That just means very. You're exaggerating the meaning of that adjective. So that's exercises 1 through 3. This video is going a little bit longer than I thought, but again, I'm not here, so I want to make sure you guys have everything you need. We're going to skip to page 5 and go over the conjugations of the verb ser. You need to have these in your notes. Ser is fundamental. It's going to come up all the time. It already has for your project. You recognize it already, I'm sure. And many of you probably remember it from last year. Ser is to be. We use it for time. We use it for descriptions of ourselves. You guys used it when you were describing what you're like as a person. We use it, let's see, time, descriptions, the date as well. We'll talk a little bit more about how we use ser in different contexts, but for this context, we use it when we describe things, right? So that's why we often use ser with descriptive adjectives, like the ones we saw on page 3. Ser is irregular, and we'll talk about what that means when we get to the conjugations of verbs, but for all intents and purposes, you need to know the different forms of ser, and this is just like someone trying to learn English and the different forms of the verb to be. In English, I am, you are, he, she, or it is, we are, and they are. It's exactly the same concept, but in Spanish. Yo soy, I am. Tú eres, you are. Él es, he is. Ella es, she is. Nosotros somos, we are. Ellos son, they are. Ellas son, they are. I don't want to geek out too much, but there's some details here that we've left out. For example, what's going on with usted and ustedes? I don't want to dive into this too much right now, especially me not being with you, but just basic difference between tú and usted is politeness. And you guys probably remember this from last year in Spanish 1. Tú would be used, both of these mean you, right? tú and usted. Tú meaning used mainly with friends, people that you're comfortable with, informal, right? And usted, people that you want to demonstrate respect toward, formal. Vosotros, you'll notice I didn't go over, and that is because vosotros is used almost exclusively in Spain. There are 21 Spanish-speaking countries, of which 20, to the best of my knowledge and my experience, use vosotros, Spain being the only one. So for that reason, the fact that you are unlikely to come across it, you can see even the book puts it in a different hue, it being optional. We will not cover the vosotros because it's used predominantly in Spain, not in Mexico, not in Central America, not in South America, the places that you're more than likely going to use your Spanish, or the people from those parts of the world with whom you'll use your Spanish don't really use vosotros. Exercise 7, we're going to practice. Escribe la forma correcta del verbo ser para completar lo que Alejandro escribe sobre los estudiantes en su clase de español. Write the correct form of the verb ser. So one of these 5 forms. Again, we're not going to cover vosotros, so you only have 5 forms depending upon the subject. I, you, he, she, we, and they. And by the way, nosotros and nosotras, you know the difference between that? It's just gender, right? Masculine and feminine. We'll get into that further as we continue. But write the correct form of the verb ser in the blank to complete what Alejandro writes about the students in his Spanish class. So let's do the first 3 together, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up here. Escribe, we already did that. Así son los estudiantes en mi clase de español. Ana María is our subject. Is Ana María a singular or plural subject, y'all? Ana María is a singular subject, right? One person. So that means we have 3 forms to choose from. These are all singular subjects, right? I, you, he, she, one person. These are all plural subjects. We and they. So Ana María being singular gives us only 3 options to choose from. Wouldn't be soy, because you're not talking about yourself. Wouldn't be eres, because you're not talking to Ana María, you're talking about her. So ella would be the subject pronoun. Remember, pronouns take the place of nouns, yeah? So instead of saying Ana María, we could say she is. Ana María es. Es estudiosa y le gusta mucho leer. Manuel y Marianela practican muchos deportes y blank deportistas. Now our subject is Manuel y Marianela. That's a plural subject, yeah? 2 people. So our options are now only somos and son. Somos would be if we're included somehow, but we're not. Somos is we, but we're not included. So the only form that we could use here in this case would be son. Ellos son. And ellos because we have a mixed gender here. Manuel y Marianela practican muchos deportes y son deportistas. We're going to do one more together. A José Luis le gusta nadar en la piscina grande en el gimnasio. Now this looks like it might be more than one person, right? Because you have 2 names here. Often in Spanish, they will go by their first name, middle name, and then in at least in Spanish-speaking countries, they adopt both the last name of their mother and their father. So 2 last names, if you will. But Jose Luis is one person, and because he is one person, you can even see that clarified with the subject pronoun. It's a singular subject, so we're going to just say es. Él es atrevido. That is your assignment for today, y'all. 1 through 3 on pages 2 through 3. Exercise 7, what we just did on page 5.